Answered in kind. 20. The fountain that was never hidden. There is a philosophy of life so ancient that it masquerades as novelty each time it is rediscovered. It is not hidden, nor guarded, nor rationed to the worthy. It does not require a chalice, a credential, a lineage, or a posture of self-denial. It does not ask to be earned. It simply is. And yet, it remains unconsumed by many who wander within arm's reach of it their entire lives. There is, truly, a fountain of youth, ever present, inexhaustible, unpoisoned by time. One does not approach it by striving, nor by conquest, nor by moral gymnastics. One drinks from it by a far simpler discipline, by not touching the poison. The poison is not pleasure, nor curiosity, nor difference, nor the unfamiliar. The poison is anything that falls short of the greatest commandment of all, love. And assuredly, if it is less than love, it is less than that which we would call God, regardless of how loudly it proclaims itself righteous. Much of humanity, tragically earnest and catastrophically sincere, bows in reverence to shadows. They genuflect before phantoms of fear, clutching inherited anxieties like talismans, mistaking rigidity for virtue and vigilance for wisdom. They plug their ears, squeeze their eyes shut, and scream, often with impeccable confidence, that others are sinning, misaligned, corrupted, unclean. What they seek, though they would never phrase it so plainly, is external validation for an internal absence. And this seeking, this frantic outward scanning for enemies and errors, is precisely the opposite direction one must walk if one hopes to drink from the fountain without ever needing a cup. Eventually, without exception, we all arrive at the same architectural feature of the psyche, the wall at the end of the hall. It is the terminal point of judgment, condemnation, criticism, envy, jealousy, deceit, gossip, greed, and hatred. It is paved with certainty and wallpapered with accusation. And perhaps most corrosive of all, it is lit by the dim, flickering bulb of self-pity. The belief that one's suffering is unique, unjust, or divinely endorsed. At that wall, momentum fails. The structures we leaned on collapse under their own weight, and we fall through every floor of everything we thought we knew, down, 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 until we land on the cold, cracked, smooth, wet concrete at the deepest level of the heart. There, stripped of narrative, ideology, and performance, we discover something both devastating and liberating. All we truly have is what we love. Everything else dissolves. Status melts. Certainty evaporates. Dogma erodes. Fear loses its scaffolding, like a sand castle at high tide. The elaborate architectures of the ego surrender back to the beach from which they were borrowed, and the ocean of life itself seems to whisper, not in accusation, but in invitation. It is time to wake up, child of light. No longer is there any need to wander helplessly through the dim corridors of ignorance. For ignorance is not a moral failure. It is merely the absence of illumination. And illumination is not punitive, it is clarifying. Anything less than love is not evil in the cosmic sense. It is a pitiful human misperception, a distortion born of unexamined fear and perpetuated by cultural inertia. One need not fear knowledge, for that which is true cannot dissolve, and that which dissolves under scrutiny was never truth to begin with. Its dissolution is not loss, but mercy. Each collapse sharpens the light. There is no ceiling to imagination, no terminal altitude to understanding, except the one you accepted when you were told there was. And most ceilings, upon closer inspection, are merely unexamined assumptions painted to look like sky. At some point, often when life has grown inconveniently complex, many people are presented with a peculiar and difficult opportunity. The opportunity to help someone who once belonged to a group known not for compassion, but for constriction. A group whose identity was forged in opposition, whose cohesion depended upon exclusion, whose certainty required an enemy. It is tempting, at such moments, to moralize distance, to justify withdrawal, to call it wisdom, but wisdom is rarely that tidy. For where did such a person learn their hardness? From parents who were afraid, from grandparents who survived by silence, from teachers who mistook control for order, from professors who rewarded compliance over curiosity, from classmates who learned early that cruelty confers status, from abusers who taught that power flows from domination. And so the feedback loop perpetuates itself. Pain cast outward to relieve the unbearable pressure within, like a dam eternally threatening to burst. Many believe the only way to survive that pressure is to bottle it, to seal it, repress it, numb it. But this is how emotion stagnates. This is how the river becomes a swamp. And I assure you, from all the love of my being, there is another way. One need not expel emotion onto another to be free of it. One can name it, speak it aloud to an empty room, write it down without censorship, record it, and listen back. In doing so, one discovers that expression is not indulgence, it is movement. And movement relocates you along the river. The dam loosens, the walls widen, breath returns, Those who have lived long enough in fear eventually encounter their own reckoning. Not a divine ambush, not a punitive spectacle, but something far more exacting. Coherence. What is often called karma is simply the full experiential recognition of one's own decisions, unbuffered by denial. When this arrives, bravado evaporates, teeth unclench. The energy required to dominate another is no longer available, and the one who once bore down on others' freedoms now finds themselves reduced to something startlingly vulnerable. A frightened child, calling for help without any expectation of receiving it. This is a threshold moment, a genuine judgment day, not because punishment descends, but because truth becomes unavoidable. And it is here someone else is faced with a decision equally profound, whether to extend a hand of compassion to a being who once caused harm. This is not an easy passage. It is a reckoning for both parties. The harmed must confront their own knot of bitterness and blame. The former aggressor must endure the humiliation of humility, and the meadow beyond the corridor, bright, open, and achingly alive, cannot be reached without relinquishing something heavy. Not everyone is ready. Some retreat, mistaking resistance for strength, returning to the corridor with renewed certainty. Others press forward, trembling, unsure, but honest. Anyone can get lost when they were not taught how to see. When you encounter someone who stops just short of disaster, though it may not feel golden in the moment, it is precisely that, a rare and luminous opportunity to alter not just one life, but the entire constellation of lives that orbit it. And no authority can tell you what the correct response must be, for free will is sacred. It cannot be coerced without corrupting the very thing it seeks to protect. No one appreciates their freedoms being violated. No one heals under compulsion. Discernment, not dogma, must be paramount. This discernment does not live in the clenched jaw of judgment, but in the quiet intelligence of the heart. Not the sentimental heart of indulgence, but the perceptive heart, the one capable of asking, how does this feel? Does this expand me or contract me? Does this clarify or calcify? Judgment, condemnation, and voyeuristic curiosity in the affairs of another are not permissible for the actual student, and many, tragically, have confused reverence for the teacher with application of the teaching. They worship the finger pointing at the moon and never look up. If the teachings are no longer being applied, what are we doing? Many declare allegiance to a name, a label, an identity, believing it will absolve them from embodiment. Religion becomes a shield rather than a practice. But learning does not stop when you refuse it. It merely becomes harsher. Love, in its truest sense, is not selective, nor fragile, nor negotiated. It is not manufactured by the human heart, nor granted by another soul. It is revealed when the imagined walls between yourself and the source dissolve. In that moment, you do not create love. You recognize that it was always what you were. When separation dissolves, love no longer requires effort. It radiates like light from the sun. You see yourself in another's eyes. You feel their pain without drowning in it. You respect boundaries without withdrawing care. You understand that loving many does not diminish loving one. Some fear that love must be hoarded, rationed, restricted to partners or bloodlines. This is a misunderstanding of magnitude. Love is inclusive by nature. It heals by being extended. It excludes only what cannot coexist with respect. Not everyone is suitable to remain close to all that you are, and this is not cruelty. It is coherence. Casting someone from your home may be an act of wisdom. Casting them from your heart is something else entirely. And so, at last, the corridor ends. The door opens. The meadow is wider than you imagined. The light is gentler than you feared. And standing there, unexpected, patient, unmistakably familiar, is the one you did not think would offer help. They smile, not with triumph, not with vindication, but with recognition. They knew you would arrive. They knew you would remember. They knew you would come home. And in that moment, without proclamation or effort, the truth speaks. Once and forever. Love was never the destination. It was the path you forgot you were already walking.